present with us. I am Manya, Vice President of the Heritage History Association. It is indeed a matter of proud privilege for us to welcome you all in this Tathastu Fest 2022. Thank you for being a part of this insightful event ahead of us. I am delighted to start this morning with enthusiasm and positivity. I would like to request everyone to please switch on their cameras for a more interactive session. Also, this is to inform the students that attendance for the event will be taken twice, and someone from our team will be taking the screenshot. I assume you all are as excited as I am for the event. Saraswati, the goddess of knowledge and arts, represents the free flow of wisdom and consciousness. She is the mother of the Vedas, and chants to her, called the Saraswati Vandana, often begin and end Vedic lessons. So here we have a small clip of Saraswati Vandana by our students for you all. Can we have the clip, please? Please play the clip.
There have been some connectivity issues, so we apologize for that. We are delighted to have amongst us eminent personalities from diverse fields. Our chief guest, Smt Ruby Mishraji, an artist, our guest of honor, Sh Anuj Kamboj, an entrepreneur, Principal of Janki Devi Memorial College, administrator, speaker for our inaugural lecture, Dr. Prashant Negi, and TIC of the History Department, Dr. Manisha Sharma, all the members of the History Department, JDMC faculty, all our guests, attendees, and students. Dear students, a very warm welcome to all to Tathastu 22. With the theme Turbulence, Trust, Triumph, we seek to celebrate the indomitable human spirit, which we witnessed in recent times through its courage and humanitarian efforts emerging from the crisis posed by the corona pandemic. We hope to engage the youth by creating awareness along with entertainment in the academic and cultural sessions. So without wasting much time, I again welcome everybody, and I request Professor Swati Pal to address the gathering and welcome her guests. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shimmer, Dr. Negi, distinguished guests, members of the History Department of this college, and all participants. And of course, as always, my very dear students, both of this college and other colleges, if there are any, who are on this forum. A very, very warm welcome to you. And actually, it is a warm day of February. Very warm welcome to all of you to the Tathastu 2022. I'm very happy that the History Department has decided to dedicate the festival to the memory of Ms. Smita Mitra, our beloved colleague, whose work, whose dedication for the college, whose passion for everything that the History Department and that the college did is something that we are all well aware of. We miss her terribly, and I'm sure that wherever she is eagerly looking at all the events that you are organizing as a department, including the ones for the Tathastu 2022. The topic chosen, the theme or the topic chosen for the festival is, of course, a very, very relevant, a very timely, and a very appropriate one. As Dr. Shimmer said, that we have seen all kinds of crises in recent years, political, social, economic, and the latest, which has literally overwhelmed our lives, that is the pandemic. And it is a fact that moments of crisis really make warriors out of us. And each moment that we combat the crisis that comes our way, we, in a certain sense, shape history. So it is very, very important that we shape that history in the right direction. Of course, it's a very ambiguous kind of a term. What is the right direction? What is, how do we know that what we are doing, is it correct or not? What is going to be its outcome? We don't know. Of course, we don't know. But what is important is that we make informed choices, that we understand contemporary reality, that we look back as history students in particular, we look back at time, we look back at all the events that have taken place, including in the case of the pandemic, which has repeated itself. We know that the pandemics have occurred from time to time. We need to look back and see how we as a humanitarian race, how did we handle those moments of crisis? So we need to look back always, and what better than the history department to remind us of that. But we also need to be very well informed about what is happening around us, about contemporary reality, about the history that is in the making. So I'm extremely delighted that to initiate the entire festival, we have also a very important talk that is going to be delivered to us today. A festival is, of course, all about celebration, and to be celebratory is wonderful, to be interactive is wonderful, but there is always a gravitas to what we do as an academic institution. And I think that it is significant that as part of a festival, we also have certain interactive and critical discussions on relevant topics. So I'm looking forward to listening to what the speaker has to tell us. And I once again welcome him and all other distinguished guests to this forum. Thank you so much. Good luck to the history department in particular. Good luck to the student teams who have been handling everything, and to the teacher conveners of the Heritage Association. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your kind words. Now I would like to hand over to Nisha Bharadwaj, our president.
मैं निशा भारद्वाज, इतिहास विभाग के अध्यक्ष, इस उत्सव के उद्घाटन समारोह की मुख्य अतिथि श्रीमती रूबी मिश्रा का स्वागत करती हूं। पंडित जयकिशन महाराज की पत्नी और पद्म विभूषण कथक कलाकार पंडित बिरजू महाराज की पुत्रवधू श्रीमती रूबी मिश्रा एक प्रतिभाशाली कथक नर्तकी हैं, जिन्होंने श्रीमती भारती गुप्ता के कुशल मार्गदर्शन में 13 साल की उम्र से ही कथक में अपना सफर शुरू किया। उन्होंने पंडित बिरजू महाराज जी और पंडित दुर्गालाल जी से उन्नत प्रशिक्षण के तहत कथक केंद्र नई दिल्ली से अपना पोस्ट डिप्लोमा पूरा किया है। श्रीमती रूबी मिश्रा जी ने 7 साल तक संगीत भारती में कथक सिखाया है। उन्होंने अपने पूरे नृत्य करियर में कई पुरस्कार और प्रशंसा प्राप्त की है और भारत और विदेशों में विभिन्न प्रमुख समारोहों में समूह के साथ तथा एकल क्षमता में असंख्य बार प्रदर्शन भी किया है। उन्होंने पंडित बिरजू महाराज तथा पंडित दुर्गालाल जी के मार्गदर्शन में सांस्कृतिक नृत्य समारोह जैसे महाराणा कुंभ महोत्सव, कालका बिंदा दिन महोत्सव, खुजराहो महोत्सव, युवा महोत्सव और उदयपुर, नई दिल्ली, हैदराबाद, लखनऊ, कलकत्ता, वाराणसी, वृंदावन, जम्मू और सिंगापुर में आयोजित समारोह में भी प्रदर्शन किया है। वह एक कोरियोग्राफर, संगीतकार और गीतकार भी हैं, जिन्होंने अपने पिता की विरासत के नाम पर अपने नृत्य विद्यालय बिरजू महाराज परंपरा के माध्यम से छोटे बच्चों में के बीच कथक को बढ़ावा दिया तथा उन्हें संगीत व नृत्य की हमारी समृद्ध परंपराओं से भी अवगत कराया। अतः उन्होंने अपने पिता पंडित बिरजू महाराज जी की विरासत को बनाए रखने में खुद को समर्पित किया है। वह एक प्रशिक्षित योग प्रशिक्षक भी हैं, जिन्होंने भारतीय विद्या भवन से अपनी डिग्री प्राप्त की। उनकी ऊर्जा और समर्पण उन सभी को विकीर्ण करता है जो उनके अधीन प्रशिक्षण लेते हैं। श्रीमती रूबी मिश्रा ने परंपरा को आधुनिकता के साथ जोड़कर कथक को एक नया आयाम दिया है। वह और उनके पति पंडित जी किशन महाराज जी ने मशहूर फैशन डिजाइनर मनीष मल्होत्रा के लिए फ्यूजन संगीत पर कथक को कोरियोग्राफ किया है। उन्होंने साथ मिलकर प्रसिद्ध पेंट कंपनी नैरोलैक के नए शेड्स के रंगों को बढ़ावा देने के लिए प्रभावशाली अभिनय को भी कोरियोग्राफ किया है। श्रीमती रूबी मिश्रा कथक के अन्य प्रमोटरों के साथ मिलकर प्रतिवर्ष भारत और विदेशों में वर्कशॉप्स का आयोजन भी करती हैं। 2003 में अपने संगठन में शामिल होने के पश्चात से उन्होंने नई दिल्ली, मुंबई, जमशेदपुर, जम्मू और पेरिस में वर्कशॉप्स का आयोजन किया है। प्रतिवर्ष वह एक वार्षिक उत्सव का आयोजन भी करती हैं, जो युवा नवोदित शिष्यों को अपनी प्रतिभा दिखाने और कथक के क्षेत्र में अपना सफर शुरू करने के लिए प्रोत्साहित करते हैं। मैम, मैं आपका सादर आमंत्रित करती हूँ कि आप स्क्रीन पर आएं और इस समारोह की शोभा को बढ़ाएं।
यहाँ पर उपस्थित सभी लोगों को मेरा सादर प्रणाम है। जानकी देवी मेमोरियल कॉलेज के इतिहास विभाग ने तथास्तु के आयोजन में मुख्य अतिथि के रूप में मुझे आमंत्रित किया है, जिसके लिए मैं आप सभी की बहुत आभारी हूँ, शुक्रगुजार हूँ। एक कलाकार होने के नाते बाहरी हलचल से मैं बहुत अनजान हूं, दूर हूं। आप सभी बुद्धिजीवी लोगों के समक्ष कुछ भी कहना, वो भी इतिहास विभाग के लोगों से बात करना, जो लोग हर चीज को तारीख और समय के साथ नोट रखते हैं, ऐसे लोगों के समक्ष मेरा अनुभव, मेरे शब्द सब कम पड़ जाएंगे। फिर भी कुछ कहने की कोशिश करती हूँ, कुछ बताने की कोशिश करती हूँ, क्योंकि मेरा अनुभव आप लोगों से अलग है। तो शायद मेरी बातें, शायद मेरा जो एक्सपीरियंस है, शायद मेरी बातें कुछ आप लोगों का मार्गदर्शन कर सकें या आपके काम आ सकें। इसी भावना से मैं यहाँ पर उपस्थित हुई हूँ। जाहिर सी बात है कि मुझे आप लोगों से मिलने की भी इच्छा थी। डॉक्टर तारा जो है पिछले कई सालों से बहुत गहरी तरीके से कथक का अध्ययन ले रही हैं, मुझसे शिक्षा प्राप्त कर रही हैं, और उनके आग्रह पर मैं यहाँ पर मौजूद हूँ आप ही लोगों के सबके समक्ष। जहां तक हमारी आज की चर्चा है या हमारी थीम है या हमारी कहानी है कहिए, वो है ट्रम्बुलेंस, ट्रस्ट, ट्रायम्फ। मतलब संघर्ष, आपदा, विश्वास और विश्वास के बाद विजेता। पहला शब्द लेती हूं मैं, संघर्ष। कौन नहीं जानता, बड़ा साधारण सा शब्द है संघर्ष, बहुत गहरा उसका मतलब है। इस शब्द के सामने आते ही मेरी आंखों के सामने जो आता है वो आता है गर्भ में एक बच्चा। कितनी स्ट्रगल, कितना संघर्ष, कितना विश्वास कि मैं 9 महीने बाद बाहर आऊंगा, बाहर आऊंगी, और इस जीवन को जीने की चाहत। वो 9 महीने उसके बेहद संघर्षपूर्ण होते हैं। ये अगर आप किसी डॉक्टर का अनुभव लेने की जरूरत नहीं है, खुद आप उसको कंसंट्रेट करके सोचेंगे उसके बारे में तो आपको खुद पता चलेगा। वो 9 महीने बहुत स्ट्रगल पूर्ण होते हैं किसी भी शिशु के लिए। लेकिन कुदरत सबसे पहले संघर्ष ही तो करना सिखाती है। अगर संघर्ष नहीं तो जीवन नहीं। इसको कहीं पढ़ने की जरूरत नहीं, ये तो अनुभव की बात है। एक बात और, संघर्ष हमारी चॉइस नहीं है। कभी भी कोई चॉइस में संघर्ष को नहीं चुनता। संघर्ष तो कुदरत हमें देती है कि तुम्हें सबसे पहला तुम्हारा लेसन ही है संघर्ष, उसके बाद उससे जीतने की चाहत और फिर एक अच्छा सा जीवन। मेरे लिए संघर्ष, मैं ऐसे देखती हूँ कि संघर्ष एक शुरुआत भी है। अगर संघर्ष नहीं तो शुरुआत नहीं, और शुरुआत नहीं तो फिर किसी भी चीज का अंत नहीं। अगर जीवन में शुरुआत और अंत तक का सफर आपने पूरा नहीं किया तो फिर जीवन का कोई मतलब ही नहीं, फिर पैदा भी क्यों हुए थे, निरर्थक। मैं सोचती हूं अगर संघर्ष एक शुरुआत है तो मकसद है सिद्ध होना, पूरे दायित्व को पूरा करके सिद्ध होना, अपने जीवन को पूरा का पूरा सार्थक बनाना। एक बीज अगर जमीन में गाड़ा ना जाए और उसको धरती के अंदर का गर्मी, अंधकार सहन ना करना पड़े तो वो एक वृक्ष बन ही नहीं सकता। तो ये संघर्ष जो है ये हमारे जीवन की जरूरत है, हमारा दायित्व है एंड कुदरत का सबसे बड़ा लेसन है। जहां तक बात मैं अपने क्षेत्र की करती हूं, कलाकार बनना इतना आसान नहीं, परंपरा के संस्थापक बनना इतना आसान नहीं, अपने गुरु के नाम को कायम रखना आसान नहीं। ये सब कुछ संघर्ष से ही पैदा होता है। संघर्ष एक तरीके की शुरुआत है। स्त्रियों के लिए, जब मैं आपको बताती हूँ, जब सितारा देवी जी ने खुद मुझे इस बात को मेरे घर में बैठकर हम लोगों के साथ ये अनुभव अपना साझा किया था कि जब उन्होंने प्लान किया कि मुझे एक नर्तकी के रूप में विख्यात होना है, तब जिस मोहल्ले में वो रहती थी उन्होंने कहा कि जब हम 4 बजे घुंघरू पहनकर रियाज करते थे तो बाहर का मोहल्ला जो था वो उनको अच्छी नजर से नहीं देखता था और उनको अपने उस मोहल्ले का बड़ा तिरस्कार सहना पड़ा था। नाचती हो? भला कोई स्त्री नाचती भी है? एक हे दृष्टि का उनको सामना करना पड़ा था, मगर लगन इतनी सच्ची थी उनकी कि उनके पिताजी सुखदेव महाराज खुद अपनी तीनों बेटियों को लेकर के शहर के बाहर एक गांव चले गए और उस गांव में उन्होंने रियाज किया, कला को साधा, संघर्ष किया, और जब अपने ऊपर उनको आत्मविश्वास हुआ तब वो विजेता के रूप में दोबारा उसी शहर में आई और मंच से मंच कला का प्रचार किया, प्रसार किया, अपने पैदा होने का दायित्व पूरा किया, अपना सामर्थ्य दिखाया, तब जाकर वो सितारा देवी बनी। एक समाज को उन्होंने बदला, स्त्रियों के लिए उन्होंने रास्ता खोला एंड कला को एक सही नजरिया दिया। नाच को एक सही स्थान दिया। स्त्री होने के नाते हमने भी बहुत, कह सकती हूं कि संघर्ष किया। इतने बड़े गुरु से तालीम पाना, मगर जर्नी वहां खत्म नहीं हुई। जब एक रूम के अंदर, एक हॉल के अंदर, एक इंस्टीट्यूट के अंदर जब तक आप तालीम पाते हैं ना, आप सुरक्षित हैं। क्यों? क्योंकि आप अपने गुरुओं के सानिध्य में हैं। जिंदगी वहां पता नहीं चलती। जिंदगी तो पता चलती है जब उस कैंपस के बाहर होते हैं, जब आप अपना चरित्र ढूंढते हैं, जब आप अपनी आइडेंटिटी को ढूंढते हैं। स्ट्रगल वहां से शुरू होती है, एक्चुअल शुरुआत वहां से होती है। यहां से सफर शुरू होता है कि सिद्ध कैसे किया जाए, अपने आप को लोगों की नजर में वो सम्मान कैसे पाया जाए। अगर आपके अंदर वो फायर है तो, अगर आपको अपनी आइडेंटिटी की तलाश है तो, उन्हीं लोगों के लिए ये मैं बातें कर रही हूँ। जो लोग सिर्फ किसी धर्म के रिश्ते में बंधे हुए को अपनी पहचान नहीं मानते, जो लोग सोचते हैं कि मेरा जन्म आखिर किस लिए हुआ है, उन लोगों के लिए सही शुरुआत होती है कैंपस के बाहर। वहां से स्ट्रगल शुरू होती है। वहां से आपको विजेता बनना, आपको कड़े परिश्रम के बाद विजेता बनना, आपको पता चलता है कि वो लक्ष्य कितना मुश्किल है, उसको पाना कितना मुश्किल है। परंपरा में भी यही हुआ, पहले एक छात्र बनना, छात्र से शिष्य बनना एक दूसरा संघर्ष था। छात्र तो है, जितने लोग एडमिशन ले लिया सब छात्र हो गए गुरु जी के, महाराज जी के, लेकिन वहां से उनका एक खास शिष्य बनना, अपने आप को साबित करने के लिए 4 बजे सुबह उठना, रियाज करना, मेस का खाना खाना, माँ बाप का सानिध्य छोड़ना, जो भी आपको कैंटीन में खाना मिल गया। अब 3 घंटे का अगर रियाज कर रहे हो तो आपको खाने का पोर्शन एक मेस में तो मिलता नहीं है, और आपकी एज ऐसी नहीं है, आप फाइनेंशियली इतने स्ट्रांग नहीं हो कि आप बादाम खा सको, दूध पी सको। सब लोग संपन्न परिवार से नहीं आते। वो एक स्ट्रगल अपने शरीर के साथ, एक होता मन का संघर्ष, एक होता शरीर का संघर्ष, इन दोनों संघर्ष के को पार करने के लिए जो जद्दोजहद होती है वो होती है संघर्ष से विश्वास की ओर। जीने की कितनी चाह है, खुद को साबित करने की कितनी चाहत है। कड़ा रियाज, कड़ा परिश्रम, उसके बाद आता है एक मंच मिलता है, एक मौका मिलता है। वहां से कोई नर के रूप में कोई आपको नारायण मिलता है, जो आपकी कला को परखता है, पहचानता है। उसके बाद वहां से आपका सफर शुरू होता जाता है। ऐसे भाग्यशाली मैं मानती हूँ कि ऐसे भाग्यशाली थोड़े से वो कम लोग होते हैं जिनको संघर्ष का सिला भी मिल जाता है। इन सब में आप सभी लोगों का बहुत योगदान होता है, क्योंकि मैं अक्सर तारा जी से सुनती रहती हूँ कि आपके डिपार्टमेंट में, आपके विभाग वालों ने शास्त्रीय आयोजन टाइम टू टाइम आप लोग कुछ ना कुछ करते रहते हैं। जैसे कि अभी तारा जी ने सरस्वती वंदना का मंचन किया, इतना खूबसूरत। हालांकि टेक्निकल इश्यूज थे तो वो एक सलोतर हम लोग उसको देख नहीं पाए, उसका आनंद और उठाया जा सकता था, मगर जब तक हम लोग स्क्रीन पे हैं ये तो झेलना ही पड़ेगा, ये भी एक संघर्ष है। तो जब भी आप लोग ये शास्त्रीय आयोजन करते हैं, मैं हर उस चीज की भागीदार बनती हूँ, क्योंकि तारा मुझे हर चीज को टाइम टू टाइम बताते हैं कि आज हम लोग ये कर रहे हैं, आज हम लोग वो कर रहे हैं। मुझे दिल से प्रसन्नता होती है कि ऐसा पढ़ाकू डिपार्टमेंट, ऐसा शोध करने वाला डिपार्टमेंट शास्त्रीयता को इतना प्रोत्साहन दे रहा है, कला को इतना प्रोत्साहन दे रहा है। हृदय से मैं गदगद होती हूँ। बहुत आभारी हूँ आप सभी की कि आप लोगों ने इतने देर तक मेरे अनुभव को और मेरी जर्नी को सुना, और इन सब के साथ आप सभी को प्रणाम करती हूँ। कार्यक्रम आगे बढ़ाइए, मैं भी देखूं आप लोगों ने और क्या क्या आयोजन किया है, मैं वो शेयर करना चाहती हूँ और साझा भी करना चाहती हूँ। नमस्ते।
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your beautiful words. Moving ahead, we have another guest of honor, Sh Anuj Kamboj, CEO of Fluid Renewable Private Limited. Mr. Kamboj has many years of experience in the renewable energy sector. He began his involvement in the field through his involvement in small-scale hydro projects in remote regions of Northeast India. Subsequently, he founded Fluid, which was the first company to successfully deploy a solar thermal boiler to reduce carbon emissions from coal in industrial processes. His company has developed a patented solar-based industrial water recycling technology with IIT Guwahati for addressing water challenges in a zero-carbon way. Mr. Kamboj works at the confluence of renewable energy technology, climate change, and finance. Developing a carbon-neutral world is the objective of his professional and personal endeavor. He is also concerned with issues of sustainable development and community involvement through simple nature-based solutions. I welcome you, sir. So please say a few words for us. is
Good morning,
here.
everyone.
Yeah.
Firstly, I would like to thank the principal, the organizing committee and the history department for giving me this opportunity to speak to the young minds today. I have specifically chosen the topic of climate change as I'm personally very invested in this topic. And excuse me, I would like to share the screen.
Yes, sure, sir, you can.
Um, I think my screen sharing is disabled. I'm trying to share. Yeah.
So you're a co-host now. You may try now.
Okay. Yes. So, thank you very much. So, the topic of my discussion today is daily habits to save the earth. And I would like to start by speaking about a brief introduction about who I am and what I do. So, just a second. Yes. So, I am the CEO of Fluid Renewable Private Limited, and we are a research-based company that develops technologies in renewable energy, and we do very unique kind of projects such as the one picture you see here on the screen. This is called a solar heater, and here just to explain you what we do is this is a mirror that is focusing its energy on the tube. And I think a lot of kids in schools and colleges, they use the glass to burn paper, especially the naughty ones. So this is the same technology based on the principle that the mirrors focus their energy on the center of the tube. The tube carries the water, and then that water turns into the steam. And this system replaces the coal boiler. And here we basically replace coal directly in the factory. And the system we installed in Tamil Nadu. This is one of the things we do. So I had a beautiful picture, so I wanted to share. And we do a lot of other things like solar-based water recycling. Now, the next thing is, why am I here? Well, I would again like to thank your department for the opportunity for me to ignite the thought in the young minds about climate change. And just a second, next slide. So I do not want to talk about complicated solutions about climate change and what governments, industries, and scientists are doing. I would like to talk about very simple changes that you and people along with you can make in our day-to-day lives to fight the challenge of climate change. And yes, a lot of people think just planting trees, but planting trees is not enough. We don't even understand from where all we actually emit carbon. So before I start talking about this topic, I would like to explain to you all what actually climate change means. When you hear about global warming, what is global warming? Global warming happens when we have excess CO2, carbon dioxide, which in simple terms you can understand when you drive your car and the emissions that come out of your tailpipe. That has gases in it, specifically carbon dioxide. Now, this carbon dioxide makes a blanket around the earth. Do you guys know when you take a blanket around you, the blanket doesn't have a heater, but you still feel hot? It is because it does not allow the heat from your body to escape. In the same way, carbon dioxide works as a blanket around the earth. It doesn't allow the heat to escape. And because of that, we have global warming, and our ice caps our Himalayan glaciers, they're all melting. Now, this is why global warming is happening, and this is a very simple way I could explain to you what global warming is. And carbon dioxide is a major challenge in global warming, besides other gases. So if you see this chart is what actually tells us about the global greenhouse gas emissions. And in this case, the energy and the industry is beyond the general people's approach. The common man cannot do much about this at this point. So this is beyond the discussion that I want to have here. However, we will be focusing on the choices that we make in the way we waste resources. As you see, 1.9% of total emissions actually come from the waste we generate. And the choices we made in food. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the kind of food we have, that makes a huge difference in our global warming emissions. And so what are the simple things that you can do in your day-to-day life that can make a huge difference? Did you know that just by segregating the wet and dry waste, you can make a big difference? Do you know that when you throw your garbage, all of that garbage, where does it go? It goes into the landfill. As you are from Delhi, there are two major landfills. One is in Ghazipur, one is in North Delhi. And they are emitting a lot of methane because all the food waste and the wet waste that you throw, it decomposes into methane. And methane is 30 times more harmful than CO2. Hence, what happens is the better thing to do, the first thing to start is to segregate your waste. And when you give the garbage to the garbage collector, give wet waste in a separate poly bag and a dry waste in a separate bag. That itself is a beginning. That itself will make a difference, because what happens in the landfill is they have a place for the wet waste where they make compost. Because the garbage is not segregated, it is not taken apart, all of that is mismanaged and methane is emitted. Otherwise, what they do with the wet waste is make compost, which is used as fertilizer for farmers. Now, that is the first step, just to segregate. The next step for the ones who are more enthusiastic is you can make a compost at home, what they're doing at the landfill, in a small pot. A matka where you grow your plants, you can use that. And there are plenty of videos on YouTube. I'm really sure that some of you will try this at home. This can make a big difference. And especially the young generation has a lot of responsibility on your shoulders, because you are the ones who will be facing the challenges and the wrath of climate change. The next thing that is very close to my heart that I would like to talk about is, please give up plastics. Do you know why you should give up plastics? Because of a variety of reasons. One, as my slide says, 1 million plastic drinking bottles are purchased every minute. Do you know where plastic is made from? When you see a bottle of plastic, it's actually crude oil. When I say crude oil, means petrol, diesel. It is actually same crude oil that you're burning in your car that is used to make plastics. So every time you use plastics, you are encouraging the industry to burn more oil, to use more oil. And that is a problem. And this cycle, we are basically addicted to plastic. It is almost like drug addiction. Now, 5 trillion single-use plastic bags are used worldwide every year. You know those blue color dirty polythene bags that you get when you buy your vegetables? Those are actually single-use plastics, and they are the biggest problems. Your plastic bottles, they have a sign of recycling. They can be recycled. But those plastic bags technically can be recycled, but are not generally recycled. They all go into the rivers, and a lot of fish get trapped in it. And in the end, they end up contaminating the environment. because they also have a lot of coatings in it, a lot of paints in it. Now, interestingly, I did not know this, but when I was researching to make this slide, half all plastics produced is designed for single use. So interestingly, the industry also wants us to be addicted. That is why they design it just to be used once. And as you can see in this picture, rivers are being polluted because of plastic. And this is going to have a huge impact on the way fish do the breeding. Yes, so the next thing is the plastics that you use in disposable like cups and cutleries and water bottles, and even the toothbrush. I am sure that some of you will make some changes, but please give a try to bamboo toothbrushes. You know, there are toothbrushes where you have bamboo stick and they have nylon on the top. So they are relatively more sustainable than the plastic toothbrushes. That's one suggestion I can give you that I use myself. Yes. Since I'm talking to an audience where they're significantly females, I would like to say that when you are a big user of sanitary pads, and this is something that is very, very important, especially in a developing country like India. Did you guys know that 113,000 tons of menstrual waste is added to Indian landfills alone? And all of this creates, your pads have a chemical layer on the top that is very harmful for your body and for the environment. And while I was researching, I also discovered that there are a lot of solutions that don't harm the environment, but they are very helpful and sustainable for health as well. So, for example, switching to less pollutive and alternatives are menstrual cups. And while I was searching the prices, they cost 200 rupees in India, but they cost around 1,500 to 2,000 rupees in Europe. And they are made of silicone, so they are very good for the body. And while I was researching on YouTube, I think it just gets a little more used to get used to it and using it. Second thing that I found was there are specific period underwears that use wool, and they are more sustainable using bamboo and other things. And this is something that is now being taken up, but not much in India. And also, there are some organic pads which are made of decomposable stuff. So now the problem with sanitary pads, one of the major problems is, as I said, a single non-organic sanitary pad contains plastic equivalent to about 4 plastic bags and takes about 250 to 800 years to decompose. So ladies, I know you are the major front runners of civilization. You're the ones who will give birth, and it is very important for you to know these facts and do something about it. Something, even little things within your power. And now this topic, this is something very, very close to my heart. And I would like to talk about fast fashion, as I'm talking to a very young audience which loves buying clothes. Do you know Zara and H&M release 24 lines a year? And what this does is, this forces you to buy newer clothes every season. Sometimes earlier the season used to be twice a year, 2 seasons a year. Now they're almost 6 seasons a year. So, and another interesting fact that I observed was that while I was growing up, which is more than 20 years back, we used to wear more cotton clothes, But now, whenever you go to these stores and you see, most of the clothes are made of polyester, synthetic. I'm sure most of you know what polyester is. And ladies, do you know polyester also comes from crude oil? So when you see a polyester shirt, you should think petrol and diesel. It comes from crude oil. And by using these clothes more and more, you're actually encouraging more exploration of oil, more oil production, hence more carbon emissions. Now, the thing is, like when you buy a denim, even I buy a denim, in fact, I'm wearing one, it takes 3,700 liters of water to produce one denim. That's the United Nations Environment Program data. But we still wear it, we will wear it, but what to do? I can suggest you from my experience, what I do is, whenever it tears up, I get it repaired. And you can also turn that into fashion. You can also get patches and other things and make it look more fashionable. But reuse and reuse and reuse. The next point is reduce, which means buy less. Reuse, you can also share your clothes from family and other things. Now, what next? Upcycle. What is upcycling? Upcycling means using an old cloth, redesigning it, and wearing it again and again. That is upcycling. This is very common in Europe. And we must do that here. And every time you're buying, I'm really hopeful. My hope from this conversation is that every time you go to a store to buy clothes, it will at least make you think once of what you're buying. Check the fabric. Is it polyester? If possible, buy one thing, but buy one thing that lasts long. And how can you check if it lasts long? Check the fabric. Is it pure fabric? Is it polyester? Is it wool? Buy a nice quality. If it tears up, get it stitched again, reuse it, reuse it. When it gets really old, you can do something about it and change the style. Now, a lot of times nowadays companies are trying to sell to young people by calling themselves green, by calling themselves sustainable. In our industry, we call it greenwashing. So it comes from the word brainwashing. They're brainwashing you by using the green terms and so on. That is not really the solution. The ultimate solution is to consume less. And as in my slide, the fun fact is, according to Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and one of the biggest foundations in the world working on sustainability, 53 million tons of fiber produced every year is equal to 70% of which ends up in landfill, plus 1% is reused. So you can imagine. Ladies, I recently saw a video on YouTube in which I saw that in a country called Chile, which is in South America, when all the clothes that Zara, H&M and these brands make, whatever is not sold, it is not given to anybody to wear to poor people in Africa or India. It actually is thrown away and discarded in an Atacama desert, in a desert in Chile. You can see that on YouTube. Put it Chile Atacama desert and waste disposal. You can see new clothes being, actually this picture I took from there. This picture is of Atacama desert in Chile, where all these clothes are being thrown. Some of them are packed in the plastic and just thrown away. They do that by creating artificial demand, because they don't want their clothes with tags to go in the market and spoil the value, the so-called value they give. Hence, whenever you buy clothes, please give a second thought. Who am I buying from? Where is it from? Can I upcycle and change the design of my existing clothes? These are little efforts you can make, which will make a huge difference. Now, another thing, food. I mean, a lot of people, would be wondering, how can agriculture cause climate change? Well, the thing is, whatever we do, even when we breathe out, we are actually breathing out carbon dioxide. So everything we buy, everything we grow, everything we create uses energy, and energy comes from fossil fuels, more or less. In the case of agriculture, all the fertilizers that we use take a lot of carbon emissions. They're all carbon-based, heavy carbon-based fertilizer. When you make urea, which is a very common fertilizer, you use natural gas, methane, to make it. Now, you'll be surprised, rice cultivation, as my previous chart had shown, is responsible for 1.3% of total carbon emission of the world. Yes, 1.3%. It is beyond the scope of this discussion how rice causes the carbon emission. But what I can share with you is there's a lot of decomposing mass in the soil that decomposes and creates methane. And now the thing is, if eating also causes climate change, then we can't just die. We have to eat at least. But the question is, what do we eat? The major portion of agriculture that causes GHG gases, 50% of which is actually plant-based products such as meat and dairy. I do not want to stand on a moral high ground and tell you not to eat meat or dairy, because I myself eat it, but I eat it very rarely. And I have cut down my meat and dairy consumption significantly. In India, since we do not consume a lot of meat, dairy is something that we have to be careful of. And generally, it is also not good for our health. 3 out of 5 Indians are lactose intolerant. So a lot of stomach problems are related to dairy. Interestingly, do you know how does eating dairy actually create carbon emission? It is really interesting. Most of it comes from the fart that cows give out. Cows give out a lot of methane. They have a very interesting digestion system with 4 stomachs. So milk products, especially for Indians, is a major cause of carbon emission, because that makes us have more cows and make them reproduce more and more, sometimes using very harsh and artificial methods. It's very, very cruel. I encourage you, when you have time, to please look at YouTube about the dairy processes and how cows are inseminated. It's very sad. And of course, the last thing is consume less meat, more consciously, and use more plant-based alternatives. Yes, the next thing is very simple. Use less cars, use public transport, pull in with colleagues if you have. There are many apps. And last but not the least, reduce air travel. That is the worst. I do air travel because my business takes me in different places, but I'm very conscious. I use as much train as possible if I can afford the time. Now, the last thing, which you have heard many, many times, use less water. Now, do you know what is the relationship between water and climate change? Where does the water in Delhi come from? Where does the water in your tap come from in Delhi? Actually, it comes from the rivers just in the Uttarakhand or the Himachal. The municipality, MCD, has large pipes that take the fresh water right from the base of the mountains in the Himalayas, especially in Uttarakhand. And they pump that clean water here, clean it again, and give it to us. Now, if climate change accelerates, which it already is, then the glaciers, the ice that is there in the mountain, will melt. So for some time, we will have a lot of water, floods, and then once they've melted, it will be too hot, ice will not be formed, and there'll not be water. So this is one of the biggest challenge of climate change that we all have to be acquainted of. So in that regard, we have to actually get used to living with less water. And obviously, providing water to our house, to the tanks overhead, requires a lot of energy. And that energy comes from fossil fuel. Hence, please use less water. I don't mean don't take a shower, don't do anything. All I'm trying to say is there might be places where the water is dripping. There might, some people take long showers, mostly in the West, not in India. And that takes a lot of water. Fortunately, we Indians by nature are quite environmentally conscious, and we need to keep it that way. And last but not the least, there are many people, especially in Europe, who are depressed because of climate change, because young kids are taught about climate change and so on. Do not be climate anxious or depressed. Please, it's time to act. And I'll be very happy if even one of you has understood and will go and do research of their own on YouTube. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for such informative words. Before proceeding further with this function, we would like to play a small video of Smita Mitra ma'am, which could not be played earlier due to some network issues. After playing this video, we will start the inaugural lecture. Can we have the video? Please play the video. We really miss you, ma'am. We wish you were here. Now, I would like to call upon Dr. Prashant Negi for his inaugural lecture. Dr. Prashant Negi is faculty at the Dr. K.R. Narayanan Center for Dalit and Minority Studies, Jamia, Milia, Islamia. Currently, he is also managing trustee, Center for Development Studies, Shimla, and editorial member, Journal of Dalit Studies. A recipient of the prestigious Baden-Württemberg Professional Fellowship, Heidelberg University, Negi was educated at Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, and St. Stephen's College of Delhi University. A sociologist by training, he specializes on theoretical approaches to social exclusion, development theory, challenges of transformation and change, and topical issues pertaining to marginality, affirmative action, and deprivation. His doctoral research was on local contexts of caste relations, changing modes of hierarchies, rituals, and power in Kinnaur, Himachal Pradesh. He has various publications to his credit. I welcome you, sir. Please say have the words.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Chief guests, Madam Mishra, Mr. Kamboj, Madam Principal, Professor Swati Pal, Dr. Tara Shimmer, Office Bearers of Heritage, Association of the History Department, faculty members, colleagues, students, and friends. It was my pleasure to listen to the inspiring speeches by both the chief guests, and of course, by the principal of your esteemed institution. I'm happy to note that all the students are indeed in really good hands. I'm grateful that I have been invited to deliver this lecture today, and even more happy to know that it has been constituted in memory of a fellow colleague, Dr. Mitra. Let me begin by providing you with a brief overview of the concept of social exclusion. Theoretically, it is only when we understand the process of social exclusion can we think or work towards inclusion. Social exclusion, therefore, is defined as a process whereby any individual is excluded from participation in almost any process of the society. As is evident, the definition is rather broad, and that is perhaps the reason why the concept is understood to be multidimensional, fluid, and context-specific. Due to the applicability of the concept to explaining almost any structural aspect of social interaction, it has been over the years subjected to extreme scrutiny. It also bears a close association with concepts such as social justice, equality, egalitarianism, citizenship, welfare, etc., and has therefore sometimes been dismissed as a new wine in an old bottle. The concept, however, adds tremendous value to social analysis by underlining the processes and agencies of social exclusion, which might hitherto be ignored by other forms of social inquiry. Social welfare has for long been distributed by agencies which we call the state. It is their moral and ethical duty to democratically decentralize welfare and justice. And in the case of instances of either welfare or justice not being allocated on principles of equity, that we are concerned about exclusionary implications of the same. These implications are at first attempted to be understood statistically. That is why we have a broad array of organizations called the Census of India, the National Sample Survey, Rural Labor Inquiry, National Family Health Survey, educational surveys, National Crime Records Bureau, etc. And then when we have the data, that is only when we try to attempt to analyze their qualitative consequences. And these consequences are later built into social policies for enhanced social inclusion. That is perhaps the reason why we try to understand social inclusion as a process or as a phenomena which is understood colloquially, which is the manner in which it appears. Sometimes we try to also understand it contextually in terms of the context of analysis. For example, if we are studying the variables which are gender or caste or ethnicity, region, religion, language, culture, etc. We also try to understand social inclusion in terms of identity, both descriptive and achieved identities, and the power relations that exist in a particular society. Social policies for inclusion in India primarily emanate from the state and are clearly defined and guided by the principles, legislations, and laws laid down in the Constitution of India. Key social interventions are based on the principles of equality, social justice, and distribution. At the time of independence, India stared at large-scale inter-social growth disparities, high poverty ratios, and poor human development indicators. To equalize access and participation, regarded as fundamental indicators of social inclusion, the Constitution guaranteed equal and fair treatment of all the citizens in terms of discriminatory laws and other empowering measures. Such measures culminated in promulgation of social policies such as the affirmative action policy, policies for shelter, clothing, food, economic security to begin with, and then expanded to include almost other aspects of human development and welfare. It is on the basis of continuing evaluation of social inclusion that various ministries and departments and their agendas in terms of social policies have been demarcated over a period of time. For instance, in the beginning, we had the Planning Commission, which looked at the overall development of the nation, which is now known as the Niti Aayog. Later on, we expanded to include various ministries. For instance, like, now in 2001, we had a new ministry coming in for the development of the Northeastern region. It is only when we expand the indicators of social inclusion that we incorporate newer and newer forms of inclusion, which are seen in these social policies and these. Broadly speaking, at the time of independence, the discourse on social inclusion was top-down, with social policies being formulated at a federal level and implemented across the nation. Subsequently, with inter-social group disparities persisting along with higher poverty ratios and income disparities, the focus of inclusion shifted towards building human capacity and capability in terms of development administration. Thereupon, it was felt that instead of a top-bottom approach, a bottom-up approach would be better suited for enhancing welfare. Such policy shifts lead to the promulgation of the 73rd constitutional amendment, whereby the panchayats were authorized to function as self-governing body, for instance. Later on, realizations aided by studies on social exclusion that the process of development was statist, top-down, and centralized consideration of environment, sustainability, and equity in development were incorporated in social policies. This is perhaps what Dr. Kamboj was talking about in his presentation. While social inclusion was always an integral part of the Indian government, it was perhaps for the first time accentuated by President Pratibha Patil, who affirmed in her presidential address her government's commitment to social inclusion. From Red Fort, she spoke about her government's commitment to social inclusion and to the fact that nobody should be excluded from social policies. During the UPA 1 government, the then Finance Minister, Pranab Mukherjee, incorporated financial inclusion as an instrument of state policy and also introduced gender budgeting as an essential component of all government financial outlays. Budgeting in terms of equalizing inter-social group disparities have been addressed in terms of special component plan and the special central assistance to the special component plan for the scheduled castes and the tribal subplan for the scheduled tribes, whereby each ministry of the government of India allocates funds in proportion to the population of the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes to these funds. Prior to that, the funds were generalized, and therefore it was felt that they were not being spent for the welfare of these two marginalized social groups. In 1991, the government of India promulgated the new economic policy, which led to an extension of the private sector under liberalization and subsequent shrinkage of employment under public sector enterprise. Analyzing this, we had at that time come out with a book on reservations in the private sector. The demands which were made in the book were also incorporated in the manifesto of the UPA-2 government. In the past 10 years, the BJP government, under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, has led the initiative by extending the inclusionary agenda of governance in digital and financial inclusion. Imagine how life would be difficult in such times of pandemics if measures for digital inclusion had not been put in place. Specific initiatives such as Make in India, Stand Up India, etc. have only enabled increasing access and participation. The government of India is also now focusing to realize the age gap or the age dividend, which is known as, because we have policies like India for which we require a lot of skilled labor. India may have progressed tremendously since independence and may now be characterized as a developed nation with high economic growth rates. But we need to understand that this growth is concentrated in a few individuals and is therefore highly disparate. In my concluding remarks, I would just like to reiterate that social inclusion is an ideal type and that needs to be continuously strived towards. It is in some sense a formal conceptualization, and an endeavor towards its realization perhaps requires to be more substantive in orientation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, sir, for this such an informative lecture. Chhattisgarh includes The main folk dances such as Salya dance, Karma, Sua, Nacha, Panthi dance, Rod Nacha, Gendi, etc. To perform the folk dance of Chhattisgarh, people use